Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
10 minutes left. Yeah, but there's still some time. It's not the final score. We need more than the numbers we're given. Show us you live and breathe the game. You're more than a name. That's what we came for. We can bring you more than the score. Every story. Let's take this thing off of the field into the real world, away from the numbers, away from the numbers.
Hello, hello, how do you do? We are the boys in white and blue, and we're back with another episode of There's Still Time, the AFTN soccer show. Broadcasting on CITR Radio 101.9 FM from the unceded Musqueam Territory at the University of beautiful and still sunny and warm British Columbia. I'm Michael McCall.
I'm Steve Pander.
And I'm Zachary Adam Eisenhammer.
And look who's crawled out of the woodwork with the Whitecaps on the verge of the playoffs. That's the Man United fan in him coming out, the glory hunter.
No, you guys are recording with there's still sun out, so that makes a big difference for me to be able to come out.
Yes, our vampiric lifestyle we put on hold for this episode so we could get you on. Because folk have been asking where you are. I think some people thought I had killed you, but this is proof. Maybe there is some AI intelligence these days that could maybe fake this, but Steve is alive, and if you could only see the feed just now, looking his beautiful, radiant self.
Yeah, if I had I would tweet a newspaper with a picture with a newspaper on it. If I had one, they don't have newspapers anymore. It's a dead thing.
Oh, don't tell JJ Adams that.
Oh, shouldn't.
He still thinks he's writing for one.
Okay.
But no, it is good to have you back, Steve, and we'll try and maybe get some of these more afternoon recordings so that we can get you in, especially with the season coming to an end. We've got all our end of season stuff to do. But I mean, the Whitecaps season isn't quite coming to an end as we maybe thought it was going to about 3 weeks ago, because the Whitecaps are not only still alive, but their playoff fate now lies entirely in their own hands, which is perhaps the most worrying aspect of this. We'll delve into all the ins and outs of the playoff picture in the second part. And in part 3, we're going to have a look at kind of the Canadian Premier League playoff picture and stuff as well. We're going to talk Whitecaps in this part. But before we get into that, how have you been the last few weeks, Steve? We haven't spoken to you for a while. What have you been up to?
Well, not too much. Just getting stuff done here and there during the daytime. Basically, but about the Whitecaps, the last 2-3 weeks, like you were mentioning that like I was looking at the games after last week, all right, and I was looking, this has to happen and this has to happen, and in order to this happen for the Whitecaps to still be alive, and I was like thinking to myself, there's no way that's going to come off. So and it actually did. Like it was funny.
It's quite amazing when you look at how much needed to happen. I'm going to call this episode a series of fortunate events.
Yeah.
Because that is basically what the last 3 weeks has been. Because, I mean, we spoke about it on the show. That, even if the Whitecaps won out in the season, 4 wins out of 4, they still needed Seattle to mess it up. They still needed Portland to drop points. They still needed Minnesota to drop points. They still needed RSL to drop points. And it's all happened. And it does feel like nobody is wanting to claim this 7th and final playoff spot in the West. And when you look, I mean, it's not even so much, well, I mean, it is even so much, but when you look at all the permutations that had to happen for the Whitecaps to now be sitting in a win and they're in scenario, they can get into the playoffs with the second worst goal differential in the MLS West of minus 15.
Yep.
How can a playoff side have a minus 15 goal difference?
It's MLS.
Oh,
yeah. You win the close games and you get blown out a lot.
That's true.
Essentially, that's what it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's been quite surprising the amount of folk on social media that thought MLS would be like most other leagues around the world and it would come down to goal difference. At very worst, goals for. But no, the tiebreaker is most wins. And it's because of that scenario that the Whitecaps now control their own fate. They can't be better than 7th, and we'll look at all that in the next part. But to get there, they had to take care of their own business these last 3 weeks and then this week to come. They had to get 4 wins out of 4 in 4 very difficult matches. And as the legendary Christopher Biggins used to tell me as a kid, one of my childhood people I watched on TV that hasn't been locked up because of Operation U-Tree, Safari Sagudi. Because the latest win came at BC Place on Saturday evening as the Texan Terrors from Austin came to town. And what a different result it was, Zach, from that 3-0 drubbing down there in April.
Oh, yeah, like night and day, eh? Like it couldn't have been more different. Yeah. And I think one of the encouraging things if you're a Vancouver fan is how they like came at them right from the get-go. It was like a very few first halves have been like that at BC Place, I think, in 2022.
It felt like a road game because that's kind of how they've played a little bit on the road. And yeah, I mean, what a different performance, Steve, as well. The sleepy first half Whitecaps seemed to wake up in time for the actual first half kickoff. They came out flying, and that seems to have been the catalyst to this success of late, is they found a way to finally play in the first half. Galaxy game maybe aside, because that was a second half performance. But basically, from the second half of that Galaxy game, this has been a fantastic Whitecaps team to watch.
It helps when you have I think I say their top player right now playing at his best, and their most important player with Ryan Gauld, and him picking up and knowing when to make runs, and his connection with Pedro Vite. Like it started off slow and inconsistent, but Vite's been playing really well, and I think that has a lot to do with their strong starts. Like them showing what they could do and not sitting back all the time and not worrying about the opponents and showing what they could do. I think that is a huge effect on this team. And sometimes it just takes a little bit of confidence. You get that ball rolling, because it feels like in the past that maybe they've simplified the game, because it always seemed like that maybe they had too much information at the first half and they didn't know what to do with it. So if you play a simple game, Vite puts it over the top, and then you have Ryan Gauld just do a finish. And that gets the ball rolling, and then they could play all the other stuff they wanted.
Well, let's have a chat about Ryan Gauld. I mean, it's maybe too simplistic to say that he's carried the team on his back down this stretch, but it has felt that he has stood out. It's harsh maybe on some of the other players, because there has been some strong performances there. Last year, he had 4 goals and 6 assists from his 18 games. 13 of those 18 games were starts. This year, he's played a third more games, 27 in total, with 24 of them starts. He's doubled his goals, though, with 8, and he's increased his assists by a third. He's on 9, all still with a game to play in the regular season. He's had 2 goals and 2 assists in the Whitecaps' 3-game winning streak that they're currently on. He's been making the team tick. I mean, it's what you want and what you expect from a designated player. That's why you sign a designated player. It's just felt a little bit, Zach, that it's almost surprised you that we've got a DP that's delivering to this level, because there's been so many that haven't worked out here.
Yeah, it would probably be fair to say he's been the most consistent DP in the MLS era, I guess.
I was just thinking that on Saturday. I didn't get to watch the game live or at the stadium, because I was up at UBC commentating. So I'd avoided the results. I'd watched the first 15 minutes in between my 2 games. But as I sat and watched it on Saturday night, that was the thought that went through my head. It's like, is he the best DP that we've had?
It's hard. I mean, obviously he hasn't been here super long, but it's hard to it would be hard to argue against that. I think he's also like, he just, not only is he probably the best offensive attacking midfielder they've ever had, he also is, I think, he's in the upper echelon of like football IQ people they've ever had, on the playing side.
That's the Scottishness coming out of him.
And the other thing is about him is I feel he's fully invested in the team. And we've had that with other designated players, obviously some exceptions. Some became designated players afterwards, but that's the biggest thing. Like he, right off the bat, he seemed like happy to be here. And we've had people who've come onto the plane. Once they get off the plane, they want to leave right away. So
Charge you.
Well, I didn't want to name names, but you know what I mean.
Oh, we don't mind about that.
Yeah, and then some designated players were told it was turf when it was actually, they thought it was grass, and then it was turf.
So that is an easy mistake to make when you come from
when you come from Britain, you say turf, they just think it's grass, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the original guys in Toronto FC who were British didn't know that they were going to play on turf, right? Like,
yeah.
I think it's also helped as well that we've had a designated player that the games that he's missed, it's because of knocks that he's taken to his head as opposed to knocks that he's given to other players' heads.
That's the difference.
That's very good.
I want to ask you, Steve, because you've not been on the last couple of shows since this has happened, but defensively, that switch to 4 at the back, it's working. It's hopefully here to stay. It's also very frustrating that it took this long for Vanny to see what so many of us had seen, which was we don't have the players to play 3 at the back. What have you made of that switch?
Well, I think for me, it probably had to do with getting, like, I think the most important thing to get to that 3 to the back was getting a player like Kubas on the pitch and making sure he was in the defensive flow, because he essentially is that top part that protects the 2. And I don't think they had that for a long time, which is why they had to play 3 at the back. So I think that helps a lot. And I think it's helped them also in the attack as well, because then they could have a couple extra guys wide. Otherwise, they only had one wide guy going most of the time. And it kind of congested the middle of the field a lot. So I think it does help having 4 at the back instead of 3.
Yeah, that's a good point, though, about Kubas, because it's like they finally probably feel confident that they've got him in front of 2 centre-backs, which is allowing them to have the two full backs. Yeah. And like Kubas and Vite, as Steve said, coming on his game at the right time.
Yeah. And then it also helps that, and we saw it in the game against Austin, like the difference that, their designated player had, Drusi, basically wasn't the same player that he was in that 3-0 game.
No, I mean, he had his chances, then he didn't take them. I mean, if we delve into the game a little bit, we won't dwell too much on it. But
before you go, I think that the back 4 thing, Michael, I think there's multiple layers to it, right? I agree with Steve that Kubas in front of your back line, whether it's 3 or 4, is huge for this team, and you've seen it whenever he gets taken off the pitch. They've not every time, but a number of times when he's been subbed off in a game. They've fallen to pieces in the middle of the park after that. But I think also the back 4 is more, I think it's more simple to play. It's less complex for those players, less decision making, that kind of stuff. So I think it's better for the players they have. It helps when you have fullbacks as opposed to wingbacks, who can focus on defending a little bit more when needed, not having to get caught up field and all that kind of stuff. And this isn't also enabled them. I think one part of this is playing Luis Martins at left back, like an actual left back playing left back, and Jake Nowinski playing his original position.
Yeah,
whatever you think of him playing in his original position. Yeah. At least he's a right back as a right back, not a round peg in a square hole. So I think there's layers to why it's worked better for them, but I understand Sartini's ambition to try and play the back 3, but I agree with you that it was like it took so long for him to finally say no. For us to do what we need to do here at the end of the season, we're going to make this switch.
And I think it also simplifies the coverage. That if
Yes.
the fullback doesn't moves up, then you know who's going to cover that fullback.
Yes.
And when you have a wingback, it felt like they were confused who was going to cover for that spot in the wide areas.
Or they weren't getting the help from the middle.
Yeah, exactly.
I did have some concerns, and I immediately thought of Steve when I was listening to the commentary of the game, and they said, oh, we were speaking to Vanny before the game, and he said, this is a game where we have to mark the space and not the man. And I thought, oh, Steve's not going to be happy watching this. But, I mean, it paid off. They came away with the win, and it was a solid performance overall. I mean, they were outpossessed, they were outshot, but they had more shots on target, and most importantly, they got the 2 goals.
I want to mention something about marking the space instead of the man. I feel it's not a problem marking the space as long as you know which men are in that space.
Yes.
So mark the men in that space is the more important way to say it.
Yeah, or you actually watch the space, and if you see men running through the space, you maybe follow them, and you don't just stare at the space, which is how it has felt that so much of defending has been this year. I'm staring at this space. Oh, there goes Drew. You see, no, still staring at the space. But we had a discussion on our East Fife podcast this week about football is a simple game, but in modern day football, it does feel that some managers and technical people just try and make it a little bit too difficult. And I think Vanny has maybe been a little bit guilty for that, with trying all these fancy ideas and things, and it's like he's gone back, he's kept it simple, and now it's paying off. Now, it's not always going to work, but he seems to have found the magic in the bottle at the right time again, as we spoke about so much last year.
And if you play a simple game, sometimes that allows you to complex things, especially in attack. Like if you throw the odd long ball forward, you create space because they don't know if you're going to go long or you're going to build the ball up. Yeah. So it kind of creates spaces in the opposition defense. So you need to incorporate everything. You just can't play all complex and no simple. You got to be more flexible.
You have to be able to mix it up. I mean, I know I harp on about this a lot, but Route 1 football still has a place in the modern game, and it can be so effective. And even if you look at the Whitecaps' first goal against Austin, it's not pure Route 1, but it's a long ball forward from Vitae for Gauld to run onto. And that ball from Vitae was fantastic. It was like from where he was on the sideline to get that ball through. And then Gauld was so good because he kind of gave a little look, I think partly to see if the better option for him was to square the ball to somebody, but he just didn't have the support there. But immediately then that puts the goalkeeper of thinking, is he going to shoot? Is he going to pass?
Right.
And then he just ran in on goal and he buried it.
And doing something like that helps the like later on in the game, that helps you bring the ball up because those defenders have to move back and they can't just stand in one spot thinking you're just going to move the ball up. They know you can go over the top. And they have to be flexible with there, and that gives you more chances to do different things as well.
What do you make of that first goal, Zach?
I thought it was brilliant. I mean, I thought it was a well-timed ball over the top. Great run from Gauld, and I love how first he looks to see if there's someone wide open for a tap in, which also probably or he knew no one was there, and he looked just to give make the keeper think. And then he looks like he's going to he makes the keeper thinks he's going to fully open up his body and go inside of his foot to the far post. And instead, he opens up his body, goes inside his foot, but he goes to the near post. And the keeper I think had no chance because he was thinking, oh, this is obviously going across the goal. And so I thought, again, it's his football intelligence, that finish.
Which you need against a keeper like Stuver because he's one of the best keepers in MLS. These 2 seasons that he's played in the league, he's been outstanding for Austin. I mean, there wasn't tons of goal-mouth action in that first half. I mean, Driussi had a chance to level things up shortly after that goal, but there was a shot that kind of went straight to Thomas Hasal. Actually, before we move on to that, before the goal, of course, there was Thomas Hasal tried to show some fancy footwork in the box and was nearly caught out. And I loved that moment after the goal where he goes over to Vanny and Vanny's just telling him, look, okay, don't do that, calm down. They're having a bit of a laugh and joke about it. that was nice, but let's hope he doesn't do that too often.
Yeah, stop watching Million Borean.
Yeah, that was heart in the mouth stuff. The other big chance in that first half came for the Whitecaps towards the end, and it was Brian White. Gauld kind of put it on a plate for him, but it was a bit of a heavy first touch from Gauld, about 12 yards out, which then just meant he was stretching and he kind of just poked a weak shot straight at Stuver. Again, maybe this is harsh, maybe I'm just reading too much into it, but it did feel, what the immediate thought that went through my head at the time was, the 2021 Brian White would have buried that. Or was it more difficult than I'm giving him credit for?
Probably is more difficult. It's probably not the type of goals he scores. I don't know. Like, I remember him scoring a lot of headers, a lot of straight shots and stuff like that. Nothing really on the run. Maybe I'm misremembering
No,
stuff.
you might be right, actually. He
So-
had a lot of close range ones and headers, as you say.
Yeah, so that's what I feel like. That's his best. That's his bread and butter. Where he's in a position, they get him the ball and he finishes. He really doesn't move through the box as well as other strikers do. That we'll talk about later.
Yes. And then we touched on Jake Nerwinski earlier, and he does get a lot of abuse and a lot of criticism. I feel the last few games, having moved back to that right side, he's been, I don't know that I would say excellent, but he's been really good.
Yeah, he's been serviceable.
He's done what he's needed to do, and he came up with that block at the end of the first half that
Yeah.
when I saw the replay, it wasn't as good as I first thought, but it's still a very important block, and he had to get his body in the way. So I mean that was a crucial thing, and he does get a lot of stick, but I like this back four, and I think it's working really well, and hopefully we're going to ride this out now for the season and then into the postseason. The second half started off with another chance for Brian White. It was a header this time, denied by the foot of Stuver. Is he snake bitten right now? Is it just down to confidence? Does he need to get a couple of goals and he's going to be streaky again? Obviously, time is running out for him to go on a streak, but
Yeah. Like, how many goals does he have again so far this year? It's like
4 or 5 league.
4 or 5.
it was 4 the last time I looked. I might be up to 5 now. Let me double check. while we're talking.
Like back. I remember last year I was saying that he doesn't need to put in all the goals like he did last year. If he gets like 50 to 60% of those, then I think it's a successful season, because I never expected him to repeat what he did last year, because he's just not that type of striker. He's a solid backup striker who can fill in the pinch. Like, he's basically a younger version of Will Bruin in a way, for me. He can go on a big streaks, but it's most likely that he'll punch in like 5-6 goals a year. But you need that number one striker who's not suspended to be doing better in order to do that.
I was going to say he's the poor man's Will Bruin, but after that contract extension, I don't know if he might be earning more than Will Bruin now. I mean, looking at his stats, MLS stats, because he obviously got some goals in the Canadian Championship as well.
Yeah,
so
sure.
last year, 28 games, 12 goals, 5 assists. Now that's interesting for me, because this year, 25 games, 4 goals, and just that 1 assist. So he hasn't been contributing to goals, but he hasn't been contributing assist-wise either. So we've lost quite a lot output-wise from him. He did get 3 goals in 3 matches in the Canadian Championship, so maybe we can't knock him too much. And
I think regard. He had, and speaking of knocks, I think he had a few knocks this year, which he didn't have last year.
He came in with a bit of an injury as well.
Yeah, so he had a slow start to this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's much like Ryan Gauld had injuries and concussions at the start of the year, and it's taken him a while to get going. I mean, if we can unlock White at this time, like if he can have a big game against Minnesota and take that into the playoffs, that's ideal.
Yeah, they want him to get on a roll. I don't know if you mentioned there, Michael, but like, you can't mention his goals without, I think, he scored 3 in the Voyageurs Cup, right?
Right.
That's massive.
Oh yeah,
they would not have won that without him.
3 in 3 games is like tremendous,
and then scoring in the shootout,
of course. 62nd minute was where the game then turned, because Driussi had an effort from a good position that you'd expect him to at least get on target, but he pulled it wide from a good crossing at the box from Nick Lima. And it proved to be a costly miss because the Whitecaps then went straight up the pitch and banged in their second. And it came from a man that had only been on the pitch a matter of mere minutes. Lucas Cavallini got it. He tucked away a low one from Gauld from the edge of the 6. It's what you want your striker to do. It's where you want your striker to be.
In the box.
Yes. And not talking about anything else just now but the goal. It was a good team goal. He took it well. You saw what it meant to him. I was a little bit worried he was going to get booked for over-celebrating when he jumped over the barrier and went straight up to the fans.
Well, technically, we know that that's a yellow card.
Yes.
No, but you could tell the way speed he was going that was a natural thing for him to do. Otherwise, he was going to bang into those boards. Like, it was clear that his momentum took him over the bars. Yeah, he did. He did follow up and go further in.
Yeah,
I agree with that. But the initial jumping over the boards, that was okay to do.
Oh yeah, that's fine. It's when you're not supposed to interact.
Oh, okay.
And you saw what it meant to him, and it clearly meant a lot, and he's been apologetic for everything, and
it was right after Jerusi's missed too, right?
Yeah.
Right after, it was a couple of minutes.
Straight up the pitch. Now,
well, okay, before we talk about the goal more, Michael, how did you feel? Because I mean, going back a few weeks or whatever it was, or month, I guess, you were like, I hope he doesn't play again. Like he shouldn't be in the last game. Or
I genuinely feel if the Whitecaps were out of it, you wouldn't have seen him.
Okay.
But we did say a couple of weeks ago, if they're still in the mix, you have to play him.
Yeah,
I think it was the right decision not to start him.
Yeah.
Because that would have been a pretty bad message for Brian White. Even though the informed striker this season has been Cavallini. So, I mean, it's tough.
Yeah, and the thing is like, yes, you don't want, like, I agree with you that it would have been, like, if they were out of it, you don't play them. But for the sake of the supporters that are still following this team, and for the teammates and everything like that, I think you have to make him available in this case. So I don't have a problem with him playing. Even though he served his suspension. It could have been longer.
He's done the crime. He served his time.
Yeah, and I'm surprised it actually wasn't longer. I thought it'd be the rest of the season, honestly, when I first saw it. So I was surprised it was just 4 games.
Well, I would say now, heading into Minnesota, you have to start him over Brian White.
I would agree.
It's like White's just out of sorts. I know we've just said we need him to get streaky, etc., but you can't take that risk. So I think you've got to go with Cava, assuming he's not suspended.
For at the end of the game stuff?
Yes. And the reason I say that is we got to see the good, the bad, and the ugly from Cava in his short half-hour cameo on Saturday night. The good was obviously the goal. The bad was then allowing himself to get into it with one of the biggest shit disturbers in MLS, Felipe.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no matter whether he's playing on your team or against your team, you know what Felipe's like. You know what he does. He gets under your skin.
Totally.
And Cava let that happen.
Yeah.
And that's just the general worry, is that around the league, players like Felipe, and if I'm a coach, I send Felipe on and someone of that ilk going, right, you get under his skin. Like next week, if Adrian Heath has got a guy that is in that shit disturber mold, Adrian Heath's going to say, you get straight onto Cava.
I was going to say, is Alonso fit?
Is Alonso on the team? I don't even know if he's on Minnesota or not.
That would be an interesting one to get under his skin. But someone will get under his skin. Someone will be either mouthing off at him or do a couple of hard tackles, because you know he's going to react. There was a moment, I can't even remember, that so much happened in those final minutes, but there was a moment that you physically saw the red mist come over Cavallini's eyes, and he had a maniacal look on him. And that goes back to him saying, I can't control this.
Yeah.
For me though, I felt like in the last little bit, I thought Austin was a little bit more the people that pursued the physical play and the
they were going for it.
And also, I felt the referee lost a lot of control near the end of the game. There's a couple places where he could have slowed down the play. Although Cavallini, it might have been a little bit of a dive, but he definitely got shoved by
Yeah.
the center back, and then they called a foul on Vancouver against the Austin player, and I think it should have been called back even before that. Like,
I
there's a
thought the
place,
ref had a good game up until the 90th minute, and then he
Yeah.
just lost the plot, or he
Yeah,
lost control.
he needed to control it a little bit more, not even giving yellow cards out for fouls, but he needed to slow the game down in order to get things back rolling, because it did look like it was spiraling out of control.
I think the booking for Cava, which is what I'm putting in the bad category, I think it was harsh. But he put himself in the position to get it because his reputation precedes him.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think it was a booking. I think it was a stupid thing. But then the ugly was the post game, and like we've talked, teams know that they're going to get him fired up. But I mean, I don't know exactly what happened, and it's hard to tell. All we know is that his personal minder, Mr. Vanstone, was right in the mix of it.
Yeah.
And he was keen to stress, as were the Whitecaps after the game, to the media that were there, that there was nothing to see, nothing happened. The TV pictures kind of give a different indication, and I haven't heard this myself, but someone had said, Colin Miller had said on the radio that he's adamant he saw Cava do something. I'll just leave it vague like that. Folk can listen to what it is. Now, I didn't see it myself, but Colin Miller was adamant that there was an incident, which is why, if it hasn't been captured, Cava's okay. But you don't know what the referee or the officiating team did see and what might be in the referee's report.
Yeah,
But
I think it was
just so stupid.
I think it was just $1 Million Boys being $1 Million Boys.
I mean, it's just stupid to let yourself get into that when you're coming off a 4-game suspension. But like Leo Owusu was like wild as well, and
yeah. I don't know, it felt like
got pushed over.
I felt like Austin was more aggressive than anything, and I think if the MLS does review it, that's what they'll see. And I think if they do, I don't think they'll do anything, because I don't think they want to punish Austin, because I think if they punish Vancouver, Austin has way more stuff that was going on in there.
Yeah, I don't think they will either. Yeah. It was just disappointing to see that happen, and obviously tensions do boil over. What I thought was interesting though is, if the Whitecaps get in, it's Austin that they're facing in the first round of the playoffs. So was that in the Austin mindset? Am I reading too much into this? Were they trying to get a bit of fire for this rematch? Were they wanting to take that into what's going to be their home turf? It's going to be a whole different Austin team that we see down there.
I don't know. I guess, and that could be part of what Felipe was thinking in terms of whatever. But like, Cav is just not a smart. He's not smart. He's not a smart footballer. Like, his yellow card is just like stupid. Why would you go and why? I don't know if I agree with you. That was harsh, Michael. Why would you run it through the back of a player like that? Like, what's the referee supposed to do? Like, you're kind of giving him no excuse. And then you could see that after that, this is around the yellow card, when he's talking to the guy, he's like, "Yeah, you and me after, or whatever." The guy's like, "Yeah, let's go." You like. It's like that's moronic to me. Like,
it's normal for any other player. It's okay for any other player to do stuff like that. For Cavallini, that's the big difference.
No, yeah, you're coming off a 4-game suspension.
Yeah, that's the issue. That it's for him, it doesn't look good. If it was any other player, I don't think anybody really would have batted an eye or talked about it.
No, they would just be like, "Oh, it's just handbags," and then they would just
and the other thing is about Austin too. If you look at their previous like 6 games, they've only won 1 and drawn 1 out of their last 6. So they might be like going, "What's going on with us?" And then maybe they're just trying to spark a fire going into the playoffs, because they don't want to be, you have this big, good, great start, but then you're fluttering at the end, and you don't want to go into the playoffs like that. So it could have been a message to themselves as well.
Yeah, that's fair.
The way they ended the game.
I apologies, I can't remember who tweeted this at me, but they said, having watched Cava in his post-game interview, it's clear the elevator doesn't go all the way to the top floor.
Yeah, and multiple people have said similar things to me about him that know him much better than any of us ever will. Like that he's just not. He's not maybe able to like literally control himself or make good decisions in moments like that.
Well, the rumours over the weekend were that he has been offered to Atlas on a free after the season.
What country is that?
Mexico.
Okay, yeah. They don't punish the players like that.
His style, you feel, fits it in there. And he did thrive when he was down there.
Yeah. It might be a good fit for him, and it might be something that he needs to do in addition to the Whitecaps. It might be a mutual thing.
Yeah, I think he needs a
works for
fresh
everybody.
start. No matter, like, taking the Whitecaps part of it out, for him as a player and a person, I think he needs a fresh start. He needs to get out of MLS. I don't think it's a league that suits his physical style.
Like I would say, like I remember when Kendall, and it's not the same. Before you jump on me, Zach, Waston, sorry, Kendall. What's it, Watson or Watson? I can't remember.
Watson.
Because there's a bad Watson too, and I'm getting confused now.
Yeah.
Kendall Waston, when he was here, he never played dirty, but his physical ability to overpower people got him yellow cards.
Yeah,
Now
and then he got
Lucas
a reputation.
and a reputation, and now Lucas Cavallini clearly has a reputation if he never had one before. After the head stomp or the Seth Rollins or whatever you want to curb stomp, he's got the reputation. He's going to be hounded, and if he continues to play, like clearly after 4 games, he didn't learn that he needs to cool it a little bit at the end of Austin, and I don't think he's going to learn it in the future. So for Vancouver's sake, for his sake, I think it's better off that he doesn't play in MLS. Honestly,
Yeah,
he can't be in Vancouver. Like
he can't be anywhere in MLS because he's going to do this thing anywhere unless he plays for TFC and Osorio is able to keep him under control. But remember, he kicked Osorio in the shins too.
Yeah,
that's supposed to be his childhood
mate.
friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't see how anything in MLS will work.
It was interesting, I thought, as well, that Herdman didn't use him in these 2 games either.
Yeah, he gave Ugbo got a look, and was there and Brim, was it Brim also got in?
Possibly.
I think he did.
I think it wouldn't have been a good look for Herdman to put him in too after him like doing something like that where he's suspended for egregious like foul like that. So it's not a good look for. I think it's a wise decision by Herdman because you would have been questioned for that.
But then a normal player would be like, "Oh, okay, I need to make sure I keep my nose clean because I really want to go to the World Cup."
Yeah, it was moronic. Is what his behavior in and after he got booked, and at the end of the game were moronic.
Yeah, I think your red mist thing, or seeing like a red, like a bull seeing a red.
Over him.
Yeah, a bull seeing red or something like that. Whatever you want to say.
But here's the thing, dude. Here's the thing, guys. That's not an excuse.
Oh no, I know. We're not
It's not
saying it's an excuse, but that's clearly what's happening.
Yeah, it's a reason. It's a reasoning of what's going on. Of what, like he just can't handle it at this point.
No,
because bulls, they can't handle red, so it's the same thing here.
Last thing I'll say about the game is something that disappointed me, which was the crowd. It was 19,292. Last home game of the season, everything was on the line, and it wasn't a sellout. I was a bit disappointed in that.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it was a good crowd for them for this year.
I mean, it's still a decent number, but I would have hoped they could have sold out.
If you take into account that it's like 20 degrees in October on a weekend, I think people are still taking advantage of whatever they can.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was up at UBC, so
yeah.
Michael, this wasn't like the Voyageurs Cup final. They had a week or 2 or whatever, 2 or 3 to sell it. To like.
Well, they also didn't have all the offers and deals and stuff, but.
Well, exactly. That's what I mean. Like they didn't know. I mean, they could have been done by now, right? They didn't know till last game, so they had like less than a week to.
I would say
I thought 19 was good for this.
Actually, didn't know till Tuesday night when Seattle messed it up.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I would say that it was a very decent crowd for the time and the extenuating circumstances.
All right, I'm maybe just being harsh again.
Yeah,
I'm in my harsh mood. My holiday vibe is obviously worn off, and I'm just harsh.
I agree. Like for this season, that was a good crowd. Obviously, it's not a good crowd in the bigger picture, but for this season, I think it was a really good crowd.
Just to round this part off, I've got a bulging sack here that I need to empty. We got some listeners' questions, so we'll just rapid fire. Just some of this we've talked about, some we haven't. TVB says, how can Vanny justify 3 at the back for such a long stretch of the year? It wasn't passing the eye test or the analytical. So, I mean, we've covered that, and it is disappointing thing. It's certainly something I think he was ask Vanny about post-season chat.
I'm wondering if it's the Italian in him that he just really wanted to play three at the back, or he wanted to really. He was so committed to it, especially at the beginning of the season, that he didn't want to give it up until it
Yeah.
became a moment that he needed to at that point.
Very possibly.
Yeah.
Tim Altman says, win or lose, and this is about this game in Minnesota, win or lose, I worry we won't improve enough in the off-season because we almost or made the playoffs. I hope Axel was making decisions while we were struggling and seemingly out of contention, not after decision day. And that goes back to last year as well, where they just got in and they're like, oh, we don't need to change too much. And that I think that's a very fair worry from Tim, that they might have that same approach. Although they have made some good summer additions this year at least.
Yeah. And that's when you're going to get the more positive ones. The ones that they need to work on in the winter for me all the time is your backups, like your rotational players. That's where you got to improve. You might not improve a starting position, but a rotational. And if you're going to get rid of Cavallini, you definitely need to bring in a striker as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think it's both, Steve. But I think Proggy, Tim there, Michael, is, I think, expressing the heart and the mind of most Whitecaps fans, right? Like, it was shocking last year when Axel said that, like, oh yeah, well, obviously we're good enough. We don't need to make that many changes.
Do we have any injured players that are going to be like brand new players?
Brand new signings?
Yeah.
Kyle could come back and he's going to be a brand new signing again.
The only one who would feel like a new signing if he actually came back would be Derek Cornelius, I think.
Yes, I agree.
Or Lucas Cavallini with a moustache.
But no, Tim's right. They cannot, whether it's a hey, we almost made it, or hey, we just made it. That can't be an excuse for not significantly improving their squad.
Yeah, I mean, Oz Sweeney kind of echoes that. He says, do you get the feeling from talking to different people at the club that they're going to double down on this roster again? Or can we hopefully see some signings this off-season to bolster the squad for the Champions League and the start of the season, like adding new DPs to help Gauld? And I think that might be the thing that makes it a bit different this year, which is this Champions League run.
Yeah, because they need players.
Yep. And they need better depth.
And they do have the money too. They will have that influx of money for the Champions League.
Yeah, they get GAM for that.
Yeah. Because obviously you don't know what the draw is going to be, but if they want to make a run and go a little bit deep, at least in the Champions League, they might have to sacrifice some MLS games. So you need better depth.
Yeah.
And I think we've seen a lot the curse of Champions League, and I'm sure Seattle could point at that. They put so much in the early part of the season on the Champions League that they've now just fallen short.
Yeah, but that's a. I mean, people can talk about that all they want. Like if you're Seattle, would you rather have been the first MLS team to win the Champions League and not make the playoffs, or would you rather make the playoffs, for another year in a row and not have won the Champions League?
I was thinking
obviously
that.
You want both.
I was thinking that when I was watching the game yesterday, and I think the fan base would be a bit split because there's some folk that still don't really think Champions League as much. But I think the majority would be happy that they've won the Champions League and made history, and they're going to be in a Club World Cup if it ever takes place, than a playoff run. So I think you can be very happy with that. And yeah, I don't know. Kev Bo says, I don't know what's on Ryan Gauld's mind, but I do know what's on his head. It's a magic hat.
Yeah, they've been singing that for him, or they sing it for everyone now.
Oh,
I don't know. I've heard that a bunch.
That shouldn't be used. That should be used sparingly.
No, I think it's for everyone.
For Ryan Gauld,
for everyone, or maybe it's Ryan Gauld only now. But I've definitely heard it a few times.
Maybe they were working around to see who it fits best.
It's like the glass slipper. It's the magic hat. Whoever this hat fits. Couple more. The Chambersian one says, without looking too overly optimistic, I'm wondering about their expectations for the playoffs. I suppose anything is possible as long as they keep performing in this Jekyll and Hyde sort of a year. Well, the thing is, if they get into the playoffs, they're an informed team.
Yeah.
And there's some of these other teams just now that are
Like
not
Austin.
in the best of form.
I mentioned Austin, the 4 wins in the last, 4 losses in the last 6 games, and who knows what they're going to do next week too. So that they could be a team that, because you can't just switch it on, you can't just flip, especially for a team like that that's just kind of getting together. I think it's their second year or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And you can't, they don't have any playoff experience or history as a team, or as even as a city or a club. So it's something that definitely is possible. I wouldn't put money on it, but it definitely is possible that they could make a run, at least win one game if they make the playoffs. That's a big if.
Yeah. That's the thing. They have to get there. I mean, they're already. I mean, this is basically the playoff start now.
Yeah,
you can
for
look
sure.
at this. This is a play-in game, which, of course, the MLS playoffs used to have. This is effectively that, as is RSL Portland. So, I mean, you've got 2 play-in games this coming weekend. It's fantastic.
And even, I think, sorry to jump on this, Tuesday, Wednesday, or whenever the games are in the East, all the 4 teams that are in 6, 7, 8, 9 are playing one another. So that's like an early playing game.
Yeah, that's the games on Wednesday because they've still got some to catch up. Yeah, that's going to be a very exciting midweek.
Yeah.
I think they've got a good chance because they are in form, and it's not going to be easy. There's some good teams in there, but I mean, Minnesota's not in a good run. We'll touch on that in the next part. Austin's not in a good run, which would be the first opponent. So stranger things have happened. Travalentine says, who else wrote off this season when we had 4 points after 8 games? Got my hand up. I think I've written this off about 10 times this year. I'm very happy to eat humble pie. As anyone that knows me, I will munch on any pie that is put in front of me. And if it's a humble one or whatever, I will gladly eat it. And I'm glad to have been proven wrong, because I just did not think that this was going to happen.
Yeah, I was like not expecting much, especially because I remember last time they had the Voyageurs Cup, they won it, and I think they just barely made the playoffs, but they went on a horrible run. And the same thing here, like after winning the Voyageurs Cup, 3 straight losses in games that they should have got points out of, at least 2 of them.
Yeah.
So though, essentially, that I definitely did not see them beating LA or Seattle, and definitely this week against Austin, I thought it might be a draw at the best, but they've definitely pulled it out.
I remember weeks ago when I was looking at the schedule and I said, oh, you look at that run in and you can't see them taking many points from the last 3 matches. And
yeah,
no, but
I clearly know sod all about football. So there we go.
But it also goes back to what Steve just said. You saw them definitely taking more points than they did in that run after the Voyageurs Cup. Like it's weird the way it's weird the way it's all played out.
And the thing is, it's just for the playoffs as well. Sorry, quickly, they didn't have this, like last year. It was a large scale like catch up. Like they had to win a lot of games in order to get here. It's like a short one, so maybe they have some energy going into the playoffs in order to.
Yeah, it's like slowly catchy monkey is basically what the end of this season has been. CD Pryor asks a very good point. So I wonder how much a playoff run would change who stays or leaves, or if that has mostly already been determined regardless. It's an interesting one. You would hope that they would know, and no matter what happens now, won't change that. But, I mean, there could be some players on the bubble that suddenly play themselves into staying next year, or vice versa.
I'm not always a big fan of that, because over a full season, you should know who's good enough to stay.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Like and that has to do a little bit with the coach from last year too. That like I was like I said it last year too.
Yep.
And I'll say it again this year. I wasn't a big fan of just a little bit of a run up. Now this year he has shown a little bit, but there's been a lot of mistakes he's made too.
No, I think with like a Nicholas overhaul, they're relying far more on just the eye, or just a few games here, or a run there, or poor form, in these matches. Like I think there's more that goes into it now than maybe before.
Just a fun little throwaway thing I'll just put in here. Over the last, I guess it'll be 3 weeks now, I had 2 different people from soccer circles, like proper football people, tell me that John Herdman wants the Whitecaps job after the World Cup. And it's 2 people that would not be connected to have heard that. And it's like, interesting. So if Vanny's job was possibly teetering, there's no way he goes after this run.
I'm not sure. I if somebody like that is interested, I think the Whitecaps do what they have to do in order to make it. Maybe they just all of a sudden reset their expectations that we should have done better, and that's why we let Vanni Sartini go.
If you're John Herdman, surely you want to try and stick it out. I mean, you stuck it out so long with the women's team. Surely you want to stick it out for 4 more years hosting a World Cup.
I don't know, because it's 3 years, I guess Gold Cup, but it's 3 years of not competitive games. Whereas you could be hands-on and increase your personal stock so much.
Why would he want to come to MLS? Like, surely
he lives in Vancouver, his home's here.
No, I know that. That's obvious part, but why would he not want to go? Because
this would be a stepping stone, I guess.
Yeah, but surely Canada is a stepping. The women's team, the men's team is a stepping stone to something in his home country, in his actual home country, where he can make significantly more money. You'd think.
Yeah, but he's never taken a club side. So this would be like cutting your teeth in that. Because if you went to be a Newcastle manager, you are crucified from the minute.
No, obviously
he
wouldn't start at Newcastle.
No, I know, but I'm giving that as an example.
But why would he want to go to
Sunderland, Middlesbrough? Middlesbrough just sacked their coach today.
And not. I mean, we've talked about this in the past, but why would you want to go to Vancouver where the ambition is not at the highest level, right? Like, I mean, again, the upside is, and then multiple coaches have told me this in the past. The upside is if you do anything well in Vancouver, people know you've done it with less than other teams, and so you're seen in a better light. But
yeah,
but
the thing is, when if you think of it, a lot of people would say Canada had similar expectations or like ideas to like expand in the world. They never put very much money into their program either until recently. So I think it's a similar thing. The Whitecaps and Canadian national team is very similar.
I mean, it might all be bollocks, but I just thought it was interesting that 2 people just independently told me that, and it's like
I would agree with Zach though. I would think he's like sticking it out till 2026, even though there's not very many competitive games. I think it's better off because you're still. And the one thing about John Herdman though, I don't know how we would be like every day with players. Like in small doses, he might be.
That
very
was the
effective,
exact conversation I had with one of these people when we were talking about this.
Yeah, and just by it wasn't me that was conversing with.
Oh
Michael.
yes.
But in small doses, he might be very effective. In a full year, I'm not sure how effective he would be. Professional players can drown out like people that are like high, like motivational coaches kind of thing.
Last 2 things from our mailbag. This is more rhetorical. Which is sweeter? 1, TFC not making the playoffs. 2, the Sounders not making the playoffs. 3, potentially Portland not making the playoffs. Or 4, the trifecta.
Obviously, the trifecta would be the best, sweetest. But if it was choice between the 3, I just have to say TFC. I don't watch the Sounders that much, like on social media and on TV. So just watching TFC fans upset that they missed the playoffs after bringing all this Italian.
That's always fun. Exactly.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Aside from the trifecta, for me, it's obviously Seattle.
I think I would probably err with Seattle as well, just because they had never
missed
before.
it.
Yeah.
But I enjoy Stephen Caldwell squirming too a little.
Oh. He has sounded miserable.
But yeah, again, I say that knowing that the Flounders are drying their tears on their, CONCACAF Champions League and World Club Cup appearance.
Yeah, I know that. That's why I'm saying it doesn't like they still feel they accomplished something even though they missed the playoffs.
Oh, they did.
Yeah. Last thing, it's another tweet from Oz Sweeney. We were talking a little bit about this before we were recording. So our good friend Har, she wrote a piece this week on Whitecaps players dealing with abuse on social media. So Oz said that I once again bumped up against how repetitively the club has sort of gone after fans, saying that they're trolls, etc., for criticising players to team. Of course, many go over the top, but he wants to know what our thoughts are on like the article and how the club handles the criticism. Now, I'll be honest, I wasn't a big fan of Har's piece, just because some of the examples that she used as being criticism that had maybe crossed the line, I didn't necessarily think had. And nobody wants to be abused at their work. it's kind of part and parcel of football, and it always has been. Years ago, you got it from the Terracing over in the UK. Then in the fanzine culture that I started off in, the fanzines just criticised players, managers, whatever, left, right and centre. Now, it's obviously a lot worse now with social media, and it's everywhere. And players, they say, oh, we don't want to read it, or sometimes you can't help yourself and they Google their name and then they read it. But I don't think it helps by calling people trolls and having a go at them, and it just gets their hackles up, and if anything, it just raises the abuse.
The thing is, the funny thing was that they it was a weird balance the way the players would mention it, because they say, oh, the fans have, or supporters have a right to their opinions for sure, but they go, most of the people they feel do that are people that live in the basement. So it's a matter of them. We don't see, like, it could be some of the stuff that Hart put in the article, maybe that's what they were allowed to put in. Maybe there was more harsher stuff that they couldn't put in or something. I don't know. She didn't mention anything like that. So maybe this is the stuff she could find. And maybe there's stuff that's been out there that has been deleted, like maybe after a month or something, because people don't want that stuff available.
I know there has been some posts that's gone up that have crossed the line, and fans have got on at the person and then they've deleted it.
Yeah, the people, there's drive-by tweets. There's a lot of drive-by tweets where they put it up for a couple of days and then they'll delete it. They want to see if the player sees it, and then they get deleted because they don't want it to be affecting their, like, they might say, oh, you, like, people say, oh, this guy works here. Like, people have been fired for some of their tweets, right? So they don't keep them up for very long.
Oh my. There's, I think, a lot to we could say about this, but I think first off, I think you can cross a line in your criticism of a player, whether it's online or in person. So can you do that? I believe you can. I personally have not seen anything that comes anywhere close to crossing the line. Now, I'm not in the stadium anymore, so maybe there's stuff in the stadium that's crossed the line. I don't know. But the stuff that I've seen does not cross the line, or has not crossed the line at all. There's been people expressing their frustration that the squad or players in the squad are not at the level or at a level that they could or should be. And to me, I think the criticism actually is been pretty fair.
But you can't see everything, Zach. You have to admit that.
No. That's what I'm just saying, based on what I've seen. I mean, even based on the stuff she put in.
And you don't run in the same circles as Michael.
but here's the other thing. So
look, I'm in my basement here. It's
well, that's the other thing. I think
who can afford a basement anymore anyway in the Lower Mainland?
Vanni Sartini and I think Flo Youngworth's comments are, I think, they're ignorant, because a lot of some of the stuff I've seen are from people who are very invested fans, who highly care about the team and who highly want them to do well and to be better on the field. And so to then call those people names or to make fun of them, to me, shows that one, you're extremely defensive, a bit soft, and you don't get how to engage with your fans well enough. And so I think those comments from Vanni and Flo on this are, Flo, part of his comments were fine. Like, yeah, if you have a problem with me, come talk to me. Let's talk about it. I know when I'm bad. I'm happy to talk about it. But hey, it's just people in their basements on their computers, and they don't know football, or they're internet trolls, or they're just trolls, they're not real fans, I think is naive and ignorant. And I think that if I was the Whitecaps, who we all know like to control their narratives as much as possible, I probably would have instructed them to stay away from making fun of people who are actually your paying customers, and have significant concerns over what you're doing as a club. Like,
that's if he did they say all of them are like that, or just some of them? No, I don't remember. I don't remember the article.
Well, I guess it kind of encapsulated that it was everyone, but without saying everyone.
It kind of comes across as anyone who would criticize.
I disagree with that then. The way they said that. Then.
I mean,
so maybe he meant it towards specific individual, but the way it's put out there is these people are this way. And so to me, it's because
they do a lot of them. I remember seeing in a lot of the article that players mentioned, supporters have a right to their opinion. So they do start off with that. But maybe they're making fun of the people that go really harsh into their criticism. Maybe that's who they're specifying.
Well, it's like, obviously, Jake and Rusty are the two
Yeah.
that have had a lot of abuse, Rusty in particular. Now, there's things that
funny,
obviously
but-
cross the line, like racist
Like-
abuse obviously crosses the line.
Yeah,
We're
but
not
the one
talking
thing
about
about
stuff like that. That goes without saying.
But if Rusty refused to be part of this article, smartest thing he could have done, because he is the one that's probably abused the most out of all the players, other than maybe Jake. Him and Jake are probably
Yeah.
the top two out of everybody.
And yeah, you're just encouraging more abuse. What I would say is folk think abuse is any criticism,
Yeah.
and it's not.
Yeah.
And it's worse, and I know you can't always say, oh, it's worse overseas, blah, 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 and write it off as simple as that, but it is. And if these players are that upset by that here, never go and play in Europe, never go and play in South America.
The thing is I personally don't have, like, my biggest issue with whenever somebody posts something online is don't at them.
Yeah,
There's no need to
that was the
at
other thing I was
somebody.
going to say.
Like, just write whatever you need to write. And the problem I have is people that at people that at
Yeah.
the players.
To me,
There's no need to
that's
do
the
that.
no-no. You can have
Yeah.
your point of view, you can criticize them, don't at them, because that's just being a pure dick.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree that, yeah, obviously it is much it's much more, horrible in other parts of the world. But I also think the other thing that we need to say about this is these are not people who are working in a cubicle in an office. And so to say like, oh, no one should take abuse at their job or whatever. No, these people have signed up for a job that is in the public, that is about the public adoring them or watching them at their work. This is not the same as, you cannot say, oh, this is their job, leave them alone. No, their job is to perform in front of people. And so you're going to get applause and you're going to get criticism. And if you can't deal with that, then you're in the wrong profession.
Absolutely. But let us know your thoughts on that as well. Let us know your thoughts on the Whitecaps playoff chances. We're going to turn our attention to the whole playoff picture now in the next part. We'll be back with that after this.
Hi, I'm Ryan Gauld, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
If I listened to the things that you said, everything would fall apart. If I did all the things that you knew, everything could fall apart. Let's not listen to the things that they say, and everything can fall apart. Let's think about our actions, what we do, and everything will fall apart. I got nothing to do. You got nothing to say. Everything is so fucked up, I guess it's natural I play. Everything falls apart. Everything falls apart. If I did all the things that you do, everything could fall apart. If I listened to the things that you told me, everything would fall apart. Let's think about our actions, what we do, and everything will fall apart. If we do all the things that they say, everything can fall apart.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part, it's our former Artist of the Month here at AFTN, Husker Du, from St. Paul, Minnesota, where the Whitecaps will be heading on Sunday afternoon. That's the title track from their 1983 debut album, Everything Falls Apart. Because everything has seemingly fallen apart for a number of teams in the MLS West. And as I said in the first part, I'm delighted to be eating humble pie. The results that needed to go right for the Whitecaps elsewhere have gone right for the Whitecaps elsewhere. And it just seems such a tall order, if not an absolutely impossible task. But they've pulled it out. I said on last week's show, Zach, football is a funny old game, Saint. And I've been proven right. But if the Whitecaps are to get to the playoffs, it's a win and they're in scenario in Minnesota next Sunday. That's still a tough task in itself. They'd be in the playoffs for the second straight season. Then they would be facing Austin in that playoffs. And as we said, judging by how that game ended on Saturday, that could be quite tasty. As we head into Decision Day, there's still 2 playoff places up for grabs in the West. but the Whitecaps can only be 7th at best. But positions 4 to 7 could still all change. Different teams could be in that. The playoff picture, who's going to play who, it's too tough to call right now. So how do we get to this situation? Well, aside from the Whitecaps winning their 3 straight games, Minnesota and Seattle have capitulated. We'll come to Minnesota shortly as we look ahead to that game on Sunday, but Seattle, as we touched on in the last part, will now miss the playoffs for the first time in their MLS history. Happy days are here again. Now, they still controlled their own fate after that loss to Vancouver. But a 1-0 draw at home to Cincinnati midweek, salvaged by a late Freddie Montero goal. I thought the Colombian was going to come back and haunt the Whitecaps. They followed that up with a horrible 1-0 loss to Kansas City on Sunday, where they mustered one solitary shot on target in a must-win game and had Stephen Fry to thank for even keeping them in the game. I think there was 11 shots on target or something for KC in the end. So that sealed their fate in the other way.
And they were robbed.
Yes. Did you both get a chance to watch the highlights of the game, if not the full game?
Yeah.
Yes, I saw the highlights.
I watched it live because there was just so much on the line. But what did you make of the penalty decision that was not given? Should this be a Ted Uncle appreciation show? I didn't think those words would ever come out of my mouth.
The Colombian was kicked in the box. It should clearly be a penalty.
I'm not disappointed.
Yeah, I'm not disappointed either. But I would like to kick the Colombian in the box.
I think that me saying that will probably be enough that it tells you how I feel about it.
It was a very strange decision because when I saw it, I was like, "Oh, that's probably a penalty." But then I saw it from behind. I was like, "Oh, no, that's definitely a penalty."
Exactly.
I love the commentator as well when Ted Uncle goes over. It's like, why is he even wasting his time? Why don't they just say it's a penalty? And it's like, he's not given the penalty.
It was crazy. It's crazy to me.
It's a ballsy decision by a referee at any point to be called over because VAR saying, "Yeah, we think you should have a look at this because we think it's a penalty." And then in a massive game as well.
Just for clarification, it's the VAR people, officials, saying we think it's clear and obvious that this is a penalty.
Yeah. No.
And Uncle was like, no, I'm good. I'm good.
This is where the whole referee on the field making the decision sometimes is like pointless, because if he's saying he might have been looking at it right on, and I think if I'm mistaken, the highlights it shows that Uncle's looking at it. So if he's being called out by saying that it was clear and obvious and he missed it, maybe he goes, yeah, maybe it's clear and obvious to you, it's not to me. So that's why I'm saying, like, sometimes you need a one person booth or whatever review, or 2-3 people committee that tells you, yes, it's a penalty, call it right now, it's a penalty. Because sometimes you can get into like an ego matchup when you got the official on the field saying, I didn't miss anything.
Okay, but so
I'm just letting you know what the mentality.
No, I totally agree with that because we've seen it a couple of times.
I don't disagree with you at all on that, Steve. I will say, if Ted Uncle is not giving him a penalty because of his ego and he doesn't want to be overturned, the dude should not be in that position.
But what I'm saying is, you take that out of the, like, you take it out of the hands of the person. That's why I prefer it to be like that. Like, what is it? Cricket is like that. Rugby, I think, is like that, if I'm not mistaken. That the people in the booth make the calls if there's something needs to be reviewed.
The only thing I can think about it, and I've watched it a couple of times, is there's an angle from behind the goal where you could, at a stretch, I think, but you could make a case that the KC player just nudges the ball slightly and Freddie runs into him, looking to draw the contact.
That's maybe what he saw.
I don't know if that's then why he's like, well, that could have happened, so to me that's not clear and obvious.
Yeah, and that's where I'm saying, like, it's just sometimes clear and obvious for one person is not clear and obvious for another.
All I'm sure about is I'm sure Garth Lagaway is having some words with the the HQ there in New York this week.
Like he can have an essay at this point. It doesn't make a difference.
Oh, incidentally, I need that money that we have to send down to Ted's bank account by the end of the recording as well. He did ask for that to come through. Obviously,
appreciation-
we
is that
jest, he would
We're
not
not-
take money.
You forgot. We're not supposed to put it directly. It's supposed to be the Uncle Charity Foundation.
Oh,
That's
yes,
what-
yes.
You guys are Venmoing him?
It's Cayman Islands and stuff. It's all cool. But I love Ted Uncle. I've always thought he's a terrible referee. Now I think he's wonderful. I wish he was my uncle. It was such a big decision as well. Now, Seattle had to win that game. So obviously, even if they got the penalty and scored, a draw wasn't going to be enough. But there's a big difference, 15, 20 minutes of a game, chasing a goal to win it, than chasing 2 goals to win it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a very key point. Haven't had a chance to watch instant replay or anything today, so I'll be curious what the MLS people think. But since they're big Seattle fanboys anyway, I think we know the answer to that. I mean, MLS in the West and the East, but we're just looking at the West, they couldn't have scripted it better because you've got these final 2 places up for grabs. You've got 4 teams battling it out. As I said in the last part, it's like 2 play-in games, effectively. So the Whitecaps have to go and win in Minnesota, but a point guarantees the Loons a place and ends the Whitecaps season. RSL host Portland, and they also need all 3 points, and the Timbers just need a solitary point to clinch. The Timbers could even finish 4th and get a home playoff game if they win and they get some help from LAFC and Houston. So it really is an exciting decision day with a lot on the line, not just 1 game to pay attention to or 2 maybe, but there's so much on the line here. Now, don't want to think too far ahead, but if the Whitecaps get into the postseason, the game with Austin would take place on the 15th, 16th, or the 17th. So I'm just putting this out in the universe just now, not the 15th, because I'm doing a UBC game. 16th or 17th, I think I'll fly down to Austin because I really want to check out the stadium. It seems amazing down there. I thought it would be coolish at this time of year. It does look like 28 degrees. I've already looked ahead.
It's a great place to also, if you want to like check out the food scene or the music scene, it's a really good place.
Yeah, I just had some cauliflower bites that I got from the US Costco that was from Austin, Texas today. I just noticed. So.
Nice.
Now, we obviously can't take Minnesota for granted or that this is a guaranteed win because I think it's far from it. Minnesota are going to be so up for this. There's a lot on the line. They're going to be in front of a packed, vociferous stadium cheering them on. But they are slumping just now. They're winless in 6. They've been kept off the score sheet in 4 of those 6 games. And their last 2 losses were to struggling teams, Kansas City, who have turned a corner to be fair, and then a shocker on Saturday night. San Jose, 2-0 to the Quakes. Shea now doing the business.
Yeah, and he's retiring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those guys you think would never retire.
No.
But I mean, that was a bit of a shocker, I've got to say. But great from a Whitecaps point of view.
Totally.
Yeah, I personally like you're right. Minnesota, they had that big stretch in the summer, like a big run in the summer where they were undefeated for like 8-9 games. But they're kind of pulling an FC Dallas at this point, where they're just like falling. I think they were as high as like 2nd or 3rd at one point in the season, were they not? I could have sworn they were.
Oh, possibly.
And
they've been very up or down.
Yeah, and so I think they got to the top at like 2nd or 3rd, but the drop has been horrendous, like in the standings. So I feel like they are good for the taking, but sometimes you never know. These teams that like have a big long loss and then you just pick it up for one game. But again, I don't see in other sports you might be able to flip a switch, but I feel football there's a lot to do with getting it slowly back, and it doesn't happen overnight.
The Whitecaps' record in Minnesota is not great. They've played there
No.
4 times in the MLS era. 2 losses, 2 draws.
Minus 15 goal difference.
Yeah. 3 of those 4 games has seen the Caps fail to score as well. But there does feel like no better time to be heading there for a match like this. My only worry is I'm still having PTSD from that game in Kansas City, where we went in quite cock-a-hoop, full of confidence, and KC just schooled us last year. It's how the Whitecaps approach it. How do you feel they should approach it? How do you see the game going?
Okay, so my best thinking usually comes on the throw in the toilet. And when I was on the toilet after the Whitecaps game, I was thinking, do you put like your kind of your backups in to start the game, and then run at 30 minutes? You put all your 4 best players and make sure they're good for the rest of the game. Like Gauld seems to always get substituted the 60th, 70th minute. Kubas seems like it too. So do you do it that way, where you play a little bit coy at the beginning, or do you go straight off? And I was thinking about that. No, I came back and I go, no, you got to go straight at them. You can't hold back, because if you hold back, you get a chance for Minnesota to just run away with it.
Yeah.
And I think
You
that's
want to get their fans on their back.
Yeah, but the thing,
shut that crowd up.
But there will be that 5 to 10 minute period at the beginning of the game where Minnesota will push everything, and you got to hold off on that though. And once that 10 minutes is over, that's when you do the push.
Steve, just so you know, that's a Game of Thrones that Michael and I do not want to play with you.
Okay. That's no issue.
But no, yeah, they have to do what they've done on the road, right? They have to come out, I think, come out very, very strong. And yeah, it's crazy. They're going to the last game of the year, and there's a chance for them to qualify for the playoffs, which feels kind of crazy. I think what happens with Luca and Brian, like we talked about in the first part, is going to be interesting. Well, I guess, will there be any issues for Lucas, after the end of the game, the game of the weekend or whatever? But
let's just assume there's no.
I think Vanny's got to go for it. He's going to go as strong as he can.
For sure. And one thing you mentioned about the 4 games that they haven't won a game in Minnesota. Sartini's undefeated there, because I don't think he's played in Minnesota yet. Because his game last year was early. Their game last year was early in the season in May. So, and they haven't been there since today. So this year they haven't played there at all. So he's undefeated there. So let's take that into account as well.
I think they have to just go for it. And how they've been playing of late, taking the game 2 teams early on, that's got to be the MO. They've just got to keep that going. And then what I hope is that it's just not a 1-0 game for the longest time, because I don't know that they'll be able to survive Minnesota throwing everything at them. But if they can get 2 goals, ahead, I think they'll go over the line. I think it's going to be tight. My head is saying 1-1, but my heart is going 2-0 Whitecaps.
I think it's going to be like a 2-1, 3-2 game, but I think Minnesota is going to pull it out. But
I think it'll end up a draw, either 0-0 or anything up to 2-2 or something like that.
There's no way it's 0-0.
I'm not sure about that.
I don't know.
No,
I don't know about that.
No, because Vancouver.
My concern is the Whitecaps.
I guess we would have to then go for it.
Exactly.
If it's short of the back.
If it's 0-0 in the 80th minute, they're going to be throwing everything forward.
Yeah, but my concern is the Whitecaps are not going to play aggressive like we're talking about. We're saying they should play aggressive.
Hey,
it's not a guarantee that they're going
this
to.
isn't your Robo years.
I don't know about that. I've seen enough in Sartini that I haven't seen the good stuff in the first half.
Well, we wish them all the very best, obviously. We want this season to continue. We want to have more games to talk about. I want a trip to Austin. We'll see how it goes. Elsewhere in the West, LAFC won the Supporters' Shield. They are the Western Conference champs. You happy
comeback
for MDS and Max?
Of course. Big comeback.
Yes.
That game.
Max went
Late.
there because he wanted to win trophies. Now he's lifted one.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't count for anything, but still.
Well, arguably, it's the biggest trophy.
Oh, I know. I'm being facetious.
Yeah.
Area-wise or space-wise?
That too. It's also had the heaviest.
But it was a interesting game. 95th minute winner for LAFC in Portland after it looked like Portland had got the point that they needed to book their playoff spot. Wow. It could all have been so different for the Whitecaps next week if Sunday's games had gone differently. But, I mean, LAFC have been the class team in the West, arguably in all of MLS, really, this season. What they have to do now, of course, is because they've won a Supporters' Shield before, is can they take that into the playoffs? Are we going to have the MLS Cup down in LA? Which I could be tempted to go down to.
It'll be interesting to see if Cherundolo will have, be able to get things more right in the playoffs than Bob Bradley ever did.
Yeah, well, I've said before, I feel Bob Bradley is a highly overrated coach, but we'll see. In the East, just to finish this bit up, Montreal continue to look strong, and they even have a shot now at winning the Eastern Conference and being the number 1 seed. Yep, they have to win in Miami and hope that TFC, their fierce rivals, somehow shock Philly. But
Philly looked bad last weekend.
Yeah. Oh, they looked terrible. It's like It looked like they were already just taking their foot off the gas as if they had the job done.
Yeah. Did you guys watch the Montreal game?
I saw
Parts
the
of it.
goal, and I saw a couple of clips from it.
Well, they won a penalty, and there was people holding on to the ball and wanting to take. I mean, Kai had the ball. Kai didn't take it. I'm trying to.
Oh
think
yeah, because the guy got the hat trick of the own goal, giving away the penalty and a red card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, but I forget who took the penalty, but totally it missed horribly.
Yeah.
And I wish for them Kai had taken it.
I mean, they're looking so good. It's a fun team to watch.
A quick question: if Inter Miami makes a run in the playoffs, can I count that as like the year before prediction? Or
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Okay.
Because
I was just a year.
It still
I was
seems
a year
highly
off.
unlikely.
Yeah, I was a year off on the prediction, but they have like vastly improved compared to last year.
You've
Steve.
just got foresight.
Steve, you were
Yeah.
ahead of your time, man.
Yeah. I'm
been
always like
said.
that. I was predicting Philadelphia for the longest time, and then finally they're doing something, but obviously not lately in the games. But
Yeah, that was a bad loss that weekend. But I mean, everything's poised. Decision day is going to be exciting. I'm going to have to watch it all in delay because I'm up at Newton commentating on the under-17 Nationals. It's semi-final day on Sunday, so I'll be staying off Twitter and everything. And
you want me to yell the results to you?
oh yeah, from your house.
I'm not that close to you, but I could
yeah,
drive up in 5 minutes.
You're pretty close.
Yeah, I could drive up whenever there's a goal or something
Yeah,
like that.
you could just come and do the commentary, and I'll go
If
watch
you,
it in your house.
if you hear a honk while I'm that's me driving by with a
We'll
goal.
have some kind of code going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it should be a fantastic day. I'm really looking forward to it. We'll be back with all that action in the next show. But that is it for our MLS chat. We've just got a little bit more to chat about this episode. We're going to be turning our attention to the Canadian Premier League next. The playoff picture is a lot clearer there. Just the positioning isn't. And we'll be back chatting about that after this.
Hi, I'm Tommy Wilden Jr., and you are listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Guitar starts spinning, rock and roll starts winning. We rise to the top with a cool and a crop. We make with the haircuts straight out of the past. We blast first, we blast
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part, it's our new Artist of the Month here at AFTN for the month of October from Olympia, Washington. We thought we'll honour the Sounders crashing out of the MLS playoffs by picking a Washington-based band. And they're called Beat Happening, the very distinctive vocals of Calvin Johnson. That was a song taken from their fifth and final album, 1992's You Turn Me On, and it's Teenage Caveman. It was the very first song I'd ever heard by Beat Happening. A girlfriend of mine in the mid-90s had put together a mixtape for me, and it had all this great music on it, and one of them was Beat Happening. I loved them so much that a few months later I was over in the US and I bought all their CDs, and they're a great band. They've had 5 albums, some singles as well. We'll bring you a good selection of them over the month of October. I think you'll like them. I think you'll also like our discussion in this last part as well, because we're going to be turning our attention now to the Canadian Premier League. And the CPL playoffs are all set. Well, the final 4 is all set. The seeding isn't. Pacific clinched a playoff spot with 2 wins and 2 clean sheets that saw them go coast to coast for their victories over an incredible space of 4 days. Part of that was because on Tuesday they played in Halifax in a much delayed game because of the hurricane, which I'm amazed actually even went ahead when you see the devastation there. But then they followed that up with a tense 1-0 win in Langford on Friday. Those results, coupled with Cavalry beating Valour 2-1 in an entertaining match at Spruce Meadows on Sunday afternoon, set up the final 4, with 3 of last year's semi-finalists, Forge, Pacific and Cavalry, being joined by new boys. Atletico Ottawa, it's their first playoff appearance. Right now, Pacific and Forge have 2 games to go. One of them's against each other, so that's exciting. And Pacific's other game's against Cavalry, so that's also exciting. So this can all still go to the wire, but Pacific and Forge could still catch Ottawa for first. Although Ottawa's last game is against York at home, so you kind of have to fancy them to do that. But with any of the 4 teams capable of beating each other, seeding could be huge to get that home field advantage for the semi. And who knows, if you're the number 2 host or seed, you might be even hosting the championship game, depending what happens to the number 1. It's all very exciting, Zach. It's been a good end to the season.
It totally has. And I'm just excited that Pacific has been able to kind of pick things up and, press on and qualify for the playoffs after, a great start. They had some pretty significant lulls in the middle of the season, and happy to see them bounce back and claim one of those spots.
Yeah, important for them, especially the fact that they had the Champions League games this year and that it didn't make their season suffer. And they were able to
technically, it's a CONCACAF league, I think. But
okay,
yeah.
well, whatever. Basically, it just like, but just basically allow them to play those like international games, and then it doesn't affect their season. They still were able to do enough. You're right. They had I think it was maybe around when they were playing that they had a long stretch where they didn't have any wins. I think it was in late May, early June into July, but then they pulled it off, and I think it's a lot to do with the other teams. Like although all the spots are taken, it was a very balanced season, I thought. Yeah. Like there were, for the most part, there were like Valor, I thought was in the season, even though they struggled at some points, but everybody had their moments. And it was not too far off. Obviously, FC Edmonton being the exception to the rule.
Yes, sad about them. I feel for Phil DeSantis and Valor as well, coming oh so close to getting into the playoffs and just falling short in the end. I mean, they really went for it against Cavalry, but just fell short. And Phil said after the game, which you should read our piece from Scott Strasser that's up on AFTN as well. He was at the game. Phil was very much not just putting it down to that game, but just looking at points that they dropped early in the year that they really should not have dropped, and it's come back to haunt them. But all teams that don't make the playoffs can do that.
Oh, for sure.
But Phil's also I think Phil also needs to, I think he's done a great job this year, and hopefully he can kick on next year. I think he's in a hard situation because I think he's, aside from Edmonton, which doesn't technically have an owner right now, he's in I think the most difficult situation in terms of backing from his quote unquote owners, right? Like the community group that owns him. As I talk to people in the CPL, it's like, yeah, that's the one situation that's really awkward for seeing how it will progress. And so having someone as quality as Phil there, I think, is one way that helps them overcome their limitations.
I know. See, if it wasn't for the fact he was also general manager, I would think he'd have a good chance of coming to the new CPL team out in the Valley as well, as just a guy that's got experience of the league. I don't know how much stock Rob Friend and the guys will put on that for their head coach, but I think it plays a part. I think it is important.
Well, I think,
or to at least understand the Canadian game.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to structure things, but I mean, Rob's going to be president or whatever the official title is, I think, right? And so
head honcho, I think it is.
That's your favorite term, isn't it?
I love that. Yeah.
I think if you look at Fraser Valley, there's a number of options. Like if Alan Koch doesn't make it, like if they let him go because of the ownership issue, then that could be an option. There's a certain coach that left Texas recently. That could be an option as well.
That was something I was going to mention, because for anyone that doesn't know what we're talking about, Pamadou Ka and North Texas, they've agreed to mutually part ways. I do think Paz maybe got his eye on Europe, but could he be tempted back to the CPL, or would he look at that as a backward step? He wanted to get into MLS, which is why he went to Texas. But I think because Dallas did so well.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking like FC Dallas didn't have the 1 year they didn't have their like drop in the standings where the coach potentially gets fired.
Of course, Houston are looking for a new coach.
Yeah, but exactly. His going there wasn't just to get the top job in Dallas. I think I would be a little surprised if I mean, on one sense I wouldn't be surprised. On another sense, I'd be very surprised if he came to the Vancouver 2023 team that's starting in April. I really think he wants to be in MLS, or maybe one day
for sure. But I don't think I personally, like, for me, I don't think that I think we've talked about it before. I don't think him staying in Pacific would have hurt him. Like if they had the same run that they did this year and he was in charge playing international, I think that would have helped him just as much as playing for North Texas.
Yeah, I think it would have, because the fact that you're playing international competition, you've got a wider audience, whereas I don't know how many folk ended up watching MLS Next Pro. Yeah, he did take Texas into the playoffs, but he had them playing nice football and stuff as well. But he wanted to be in that MLS environment. You look at what jobs might come up in MLS, and aside from Houston, I don't know that any of the other teams would look at Pa. So I mean, Houston might, and he might want to just stay in Texas. But then, that said, Houston needs somebody that's going to come in and really turn them around for the potential fan base that they have there. But anyway, we'll see. Some other CPL news. Pacific captain Jamar Dixon has announced his retirement at the end of the season after 2 years with Pacific. Only 33 and announcing his retirement. It's a big loss to them. Obviously, we wish him all the very best. He's a great guy and a great role model, both on and off the pitch. But caught me a little bit by surprise, that one.
Well, I think he's been great. It's been great to have him in the CPL. We talk about how the CPL is more so for like these younger up and coming players, but it's been nice to have someone like him who's played in Canada and able to finish his career in the league as well, and also bring that mature experience, composure to the sides that he's played for. But I'm not surprised. I know it's earlier than normal, but I mean, he's probably going to go on to a job where he'll make
more money. It's not like he's making. Yeah, it's not like he's making money. Like maybe there's a coaching opportunity for him down the road where he's going to get more.
New Vancouver CPL coach. I'll just link everyone with it just now. Another player that we know very well, Marco Carducci former Whitecap, current Cavalry FC goalkeeper. He has taken over from Marcel de Jong as Canadian PFA president. It's all gone a bit quiet in regard to the PFA and getting them sort of recognised and everything in that regard. But Marco has stated in his introductory press release that he's determined to finish the job of securing collective bargaining rights with the league, as it's time for players to have a formal place at the table.
Right. Well, hasn't the league with the new commissioner said that, that's, I think, something he's going to address in the offseason?
It's something that he said he does want to. So maybe that's why it's gone quiet just now.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Maybe they have they have a handshake agreement. That
keep all the sniping off social media. And, I mean, we're not 100% sure what Mark Noonan's taking it all is, but he seems more open to it than David Clanahan was. Hopefully we'll find out, because I was recently speaking to Laura Armstrong from the CPL, and I said, I would love to get Mark on the show because I haven't spoken to him yet. So we hope to do that in the off-season. She said he'll be open to that, so we will certainly get him on the show. Last couple of things to talk about. I touched on it in the last part. It's the Under-17 Nationals kicking off on Wednesday in Surrey on the boys and the girls side. So if you're anywhere near Newton Athletic Park, get along to the games. During the week, the games are kicking off at 10, and I think they're on till about 5. And then the weekend, there's some games at 9, 9:30. Semi-finals for the boys is on Sunday. And on Thanksgiving, if you want to get away from your family for a bit, and who doesn't, get away from the turkey, stretch your legs, it's the finals for both the men's and the women's under-17. Newton Athletic Park, get along or tune in to the online stream. I am doing the commentary. AFTN's the official commentators for the event. We'll be doing about half the games from Newton Athletic Park Field 1 that are being streamed. That is pretty much it for the football chat. We're obviously going to finish with this episode's wavelength, and I'm going back to 2006 for this one, and it's a Swedish band called Fan Club, and this is their song about Swedish legend Henrik Larsson. 325 goals and 575 club appearances for the likes of Celtic, Barcelona, Feyenoord. I mean, when I think of Larsson, I think of Celtic, just because he just was outstanding in his time at Celtic in the Premier League.
I think of dreadlocks and that horrific leg break he had.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that until you just mentioned that. Yeah, that was a nasty one. But for Sweden as well, 37 goals and 106 appearances. He was a great player for Sweden. So this is Fan Club and Henrik Larsson.
Now give me the magic, give me the passion, show me the love and show me the game. Let's get excited, don't ever hide it. Start of the moment, whisper his name. Henrik Larsson. Henrik Larsson. Henrik Larsson.
2006 there, Swedish band, Fan Club, Henrik Larsson. Bit different, not punky, a little dance number for you there. Hope that got you off your seat. That is pretty much it though for this episode of the show. It was nice to have the three of us all back together. Just before we go, any final thoughts, Steve? Where can folk find you online? Anything fun that you saw or learned this week?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Whitecapsland. And if you have any issues with me and what I said on the podcast, feel free to message nobody. Just don't at me.
It's okay. If anyone abuses you, we'll get hard to write an article about it.
Sure.
Oh my. You can find me on
Sorry,
Twitter.
Har.
You can find me on Twitter at ZacharyAM. And yeah, I don't know if I have anything this week. Hopefully next week I'll have something more exciting to talk about.
That is pretty much it for me. But I do want to play something that I wouldn't normally play in the show. So we do our bumpers at the start of each part. Folks saying you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
This is a good one.
We do this on our East 5 podcast as well, Glory Days of Gold. So there's 4 of us that do that. Myself, Lee, Gordon and Doug. Now, Doug is a golf caddy. And this weekend at the Dunhill Links was on in St Andrews. And Doug was caddying for a rather famous person. And I wanted him to try and get bumpers for both Glory Days of Gold and the AFTN Soccer Show, but he didn't feel good about asking him to do this twice. So we only got one for the show that he's on, which is fair enough. So I'm just going to play you the best bumper you will hear for a podcast.
Hi, I'm Bill Murray. I'm tired right now, but I still have the strength, the energy, and the commitment to listen to Glory Days of Gold. And it's helping. It's helping.
Yes. Who would have thought Bill Murray was a huge East 5 podcast fan, but he's loving it. It's helping. It's helping. It was fantastic. When Doug got that and sent it through, I've been playing it to everyone. I just love it so much.
I can possibly find him saying AFTN somewhere in his movies and splice it together.
Oh, if we could, yeah. Because I was going to because Doug should be carrying for him next year as well. And I'm going to get him just to say AFTN. And I'll just splice that in.
Yeah, that's all you need to do. Just
hold up
AFTN.
4 letters and go, what does that say, Bill? But a fun story I do want to tell you about this. So Bill Murray was getting interviewed live on Sky Sports. And they were just talking about stuff. And from nowhere, because someone sent me this clip, he's asked a question about how the pro that he's playing with is and as he learns stuff, and he's like, "Oh, I don't know. I'm not the brains of this." He's like, "My caddy Doug is," and he's like, "Doug," and he calls Doug over onto live TV, and you've never seen anybody look more mortified and want to get off the screen than Doug, who just says a couple of things and just skulks off in the background. And then immediately after that, the NBC Golf Channel went up to him and said, "Oh, we're looking to get an interview done." And he's like, "I don't know that Bill's going to want to do too many interviews." And they're like, "Oh no, not with Bill, but with you." So he's a celebrity now, and he didn't even plug the East 5 podcast. Disappointed.
Well, it's probably deer in the headlights kind of thing or situation.
Yeah,
by the sounds of it.
If all of a sudden you're just like wandering about and you're suddenly on live TV in the UK and in America, it's like it's a weird thing.
It reminds me of the time I saw Gene Simmons in a 7-Eleven, and I couldn't get. I don't even know if I said words to him.
Well, if you ever see him again, get him to do a bumper. In fact, if anyone listening to this meets anyone famous, get him to do a bumper for the show. It was
pre-podcast. I saw him.
That's fair then. But yeah, hang around airports, meet famous folk, get bumpers done. But that is it for this episode of the AFTN Soccer Show. We hope you've enjoyed it. The gang's back together. Can the Whitecaps do it? When we're back next time, are we going to be cock-a-hoop or down in the dumps?
Will I be on the show?
Yes. Well, if we do it during daylight, you might be. Yeah. Tune in soon and find out. Until next time, thanks for listening. Take care. And mon the Caps! Go beat the Loons, get the job done, or don't come back to Vancouver. Bye, everybody.
Talk about crossing the line.
Yeah.
Going to your first match is an experience you never forget. The atmosphere of what's going on around the pitch looks beautiful, and you always look and go, wow, I'd love to play here one day. If you get the bug, it's going to stay with you for life.
10 minutes left. Yeah, but there's still some time. It's not the final score. We need more than the numbers we're given. Show us you live and breathe the game. You're more than a name. That's what we came for. We can bring you more than the score. Every story. Let's take this thing off of the field into the real world, away from the numbers, away from the numbers.